So we actually, over the next hour and a half or so, I did leave some time for open Q&A. And I'm also going to show you a very practical way to, of course, build your brand. But one of the most important reasons to build a brand is to actually build a business or promote your existing business. Even if you're an employee, I call us intrapreneurs, right? I work for IBM, for example, and I still, though, when I'm doing something on a stage or on a podcast or doing something that's building my personal brand, I still want to drive, right, interest to the thing that I'm supporting at that time, whether it's a nonprofit, whether it's my own business, my consulting organization, whether it's a company I work for. So at the end of this, I'm going to show you an example of what building an offer looks like. And I'm going to give you very specific tips as to how to do it in a way that makes it somewhat irresistible. Like what I'm going to show you is not for sale. You can't buy it from me. It's a fake, but it's meant to give you an example of what you'll want to think about every time you take the stage, anytime you get on a podcast or start, describing your, what you're passionate about to the world. You're going to want to add this tiny little bit at the end, which we call an offer, right? And we oftentimes, we never do this, right? As humans, we tend to not ask for what we want, which is to sell something, right? Or to promote our business or to support a nonprofit. We have a nice conversation. We even give value and teach people. And then at the end of the day, we end up not asking for the sale. So I'm going to give you a way to do it that's hopefully non-invasive, pretty easy to do. And you'll feel good about it because you'll actually see that you're helping people by letting them know how you can help them. So we'll go ahead and get started. These are 5 steps. And you'll see as we go through, I will hop back and forth between probably like going online and showing you some live examples of ways that I've done this successfully. But before we get too far, let me go ahead and introduce myself. This is me and my gaggle of people. I always, and this is just a tip if you choose to take it, I always start every conversation I have with why I do what I do. And in my case, I'm a mom, I have 4 kids, my dad lives with me. They are my why, right? They are why I do what I do, why I'm passionate about it. I want to create a world that, that's good for them. And goodness, we're in some interesting and potentially dark times. So I do have a couple podcasts. I actually just launched a new podcast called The Lamplighter Effect. And it's really exciting. I'll tell you more about it later because it's one of the brands I'll show you how to build from scratch, which I just finished doing. So it's fresh and top of mind. I'm also, though, my claim to fame is actually on the technical side. I helped build a little known product. Okay, maybe it's well known, a product called Amazon Alexa. And so I have to be quiet because, but the, Alexa product, when I started, no one knew what it was. It hadn't even launched yet. I was employee 10 on this project. And then I got a chance to actually work on something that eventually became a household name. Most people, when I now get on stage and say, anyone know, what this is? Almost everyone in the audience raises their hand. But when I first started, no one did. And I saw, again, the value of being an entrepreneur, being able to go into a company, have an entrepreneurial experience. But how do I, at that point, I was not really an engineer per se. I certainly wasn't a data scientist. I wasn't in the world of AI, but I wanted to be. And so I used this moment to actually catapult my career. Today, I am one of the best known AI speakers and evangelists. I've gotten awards in artificial intelligence. Like I didn't graduate from high school or college. And I'm getting like all of this. And it's all just to say, right, you get to choose. Like the only thing that made me successful was that I chose to do it. Like I'm going to do this. I'm going to learn it. I'm going to build it. Now, granted, I did put in a lot of hard work. I created over 100 applications for Amazon Alexa. I then also found 5 of them became very successful. I have 2 million people who use my skills every day. So like there has to be a little bit of grace and luck thrown in. But if you're persistent like me, what do I have to do in artificial intelligence? I should not be here most of the time, I think to myself. But the reality is that I loved it. And the reason I loved it goes back to, my people, right? My son, Max, there in the bottom corner, he has Down syndrome. And he's 17 now, right? So when I first found out he had Down syndrome, I instantly, as a technologist, was like, I need to go work for some companies who can make this better, right? Who can make his life better. And I did. I worked at IBM and Red Hat and EMC and all these companies, eventually Amazon, then Microsoft, right? But I also, you'll see there next to him, my dad. My dad ended up getting hit by a car as a pedestrian. Someone was on their phone. He was in a crosswalk. It was a disaster. But he instantly became someone who could not use technology in a traditional way. So I, again, had to put my filter on, like, how do I do things that basically impact my why, are going to help my people, help my son, help my dad live a better life. And AI was my vehicle to get there. But this is just my personal story. It's why building a brand became very important to me. And it's also where I've learned a lot of the lessons. So I've learned many of these lessons at massive scale, right? Where instead of learning it in front of an audience of 1,000 or 10,000, I learned in front of hundreds of thousands and millions of people, which is a bit terrifying looking back, but I was naive and excited and I didn't know the difference. But I'm going to share with you some of the lessons that I've learned. So the first secret is around that concept of like success, right? How I had no business going in and saying, I'm going to build AI technologies and I'm going to become one of the best AI evangelists in the world. Like I have no reason to be there. I have no classical training in the space whatsoever. This could be true for someone who, let's say, is overweight and wants to build a fitness brand. I know people who have done this that are not in the best physical shape, but they wanted to build a fitness brand and successfully did so. And what made it possible, right, to go from I am not to I am was simply I shouldn't say simply, it is simple, but not easy, a mindset shift, right? And that mindset shift for me happened by doing these things. Now, there's lots of ways to do each one of these, but I'll talk to you through what I did. And you'll find it'll either resonate with things you're already doing or things you've at least read that you should do, right? One of them is my morning routine. I, at one point, had read a book called The Miracle Morning. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a really good book, right? So, and it's all about like what you should do in the morning. He had a cute little acronym, can't remember it, Scribd or something like that. And it basically stood for all the things he does in the morning. Well, mine isn't as cute. It's pretty simple. But when I wake up, the very first thing, and you'll see this pattern at the end of my day too. But the very first thing is I do this kind of gratitude session. Sometimes it's as simple. I have 4 children, right? My youngest is 5. So my day starts early. But my first thing I do is kind of just put my hand over my heart and my lungs, right? And I just take a deep breath. I'm like, I'm certainly thankful I'm waking up this morning. And then that turns into kind of this mindfulness activity or exercise where I focus on my breath. I kind of put attention on my body and like all my limbs working. I put attention on my mind and how grateful I am that I have ideas. And it instantly shifts my day, right? Because now I'm like looking for things to be grateful for before my day's even started. Once that I'm like go through this kind of process, takes about 5-10 minutes in the morning. If you need help, I've been meditating since I was 6. So meditation and mindfulness comes easy to me. If you need help with this though, our buddy Amazon Alexa has lots of meditations. One of them is My Skills that I wrote. But you also could use apps. There's things like, what's one of those apps? Like Headspace, and Gaiam has a bunch of stuff. Like meditation apps are very easy to come by and they're super helpful. So if you need help in that area, but it's really important that you do it first because it sets you up for the rest of the day. One of the things that's so important about meditation and mindfulness first in the morning is actually not about what you're thinking. It's actually about how you're breathing. I ended up befriending someone who is a specialist in biohacking, if you will. And one of the things he said is that there's only one cause of death, which I thought was fascinating. His name's Gary Brecka. You can look him up. But he said there's only one cause of death. And he actually was a specialist in this area, has lots of degrees. I don't play in the academic world, but he's very, very well known apparently. But he said there's only one cause of death. And that cause of death is lack of oxygen to the brain. Like everything else is like a thing that causes a lack of oxygen to the brain. And he said, so the number one thing that you can do right now to increase your lifespan is simply increase oxygen to your brain. Like all you have to do is breathe. Funny thing though, we don't pay attention to our breath and therefore we breathe accidentally or unintentionally really shallow. And we don't get the full benefit of having lungs that can like energize and elongate our lifespan. So one of the most important parts of my routine is when I sit up, I do a breathing exercise. I actually adopted it from Wim Hof. He's known as the Iceman. He was able to like control his body temperature in freezing degrees by just breathing. And I'm a big believer in meditation anyway. So I was like, all right, but now I do it religiously. And it's extremely helpful because it energizes me before I've even gotten out of bed. The next thing I do though, is I do exercise. So you can't tell, but right underneath me, I'm at my standing desk. I have a treadmill. And one of the things that I've learned also from Gary Brecka, but it actually was original to Tim Ferriss, if you know him. He's an entrepreneur, best-selling author. He wrote The 4-Hour Work Week. He said the best thing, he wrote a book called The 4-Hour Body, and he basically studied all of these different ways to hone, like to not spend hours and hours and hours to get results. He was like, what's the minimum amount of time I can use to get the biggest amount of results? And one of his cheats or hacks that he ended up finding was what's called 30-30-30. Or when you wake up, within 30 minutes of waking, you drink 30 grams of protein, and then you do 30 minutes of low heart rate cardio, which means not like getting on your Peloton and like, right? Like low heart rate cardio. So just like me, I will get up, get in front of my computer, and just walk on my treadmill at like 1.5 miles an hour. It's interesting though, because I sweat anyway. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but doing that low heart rate cardio allows your body's metabolism to kickstart, as opposed to you jumping into like a HIIT training session. It kickstarts really quickly. So really fascinating. So that's my morning routine. I do gratitude, mindfulness session. I sit up, I do a breathing exercise. And it's different each time. Sometimes I do block breathing. Sometimes I do Wim Hof. Sometimes I do, it just depends. But I have a couple of different breathing exercises to activate my body. Then I get up in front of my computer and I turn on my treadmill that's at my desk. Here's what I do while I'm doing my treadmill is I journal, and I journal not in the traditional way. I know a lot of us are paper and pen people when it comes to journaling, but I don't journal in a typical way. I actually document, like, what do I want to do today? What are my targets? What are my sub targets, right? Like, how am I going to get this done? And, oh, sorry. Hello. Are you there? If you're there and you're not talking to me, are you talking to me? Okay, then yes, you can mute. Thank you. Awesome. So when I am on my computer, I'm actually documenting kind of it's not really a to-do list. It's more like a goal list or a vision list, but I am writing. So it gives me the ability to actually create a vision for my day. That takes us to the second point, right? Is vision boarding. So some of us are vision boarders. Some of us like to rip, pages out of a magazine and make a pretty picture and put it on our wall and look at it every day. Some of us maybe are more like me, where I don't do that. I'm not super creative in that way, or don't find a lot of enjoyment in that process. But what I do is I write down what I want. I actually have 3 columns that I use, and I have a little cheat sheet for this, for those of you who want it, but it's called have, do, and be. And every day I kind of revisit everything I want to have in my life, lifelong, everything I want to do in my life. These are things like go skydiving and, write a book. And then what I want to be. Like a long time ago, I wrote, I want to be a mom. I want to be a cellist. I wanted to play the cello. I did. I actually ended up going back to this list, which again is different than a vision board, but has the same effect. It was literally a have, do, and be list. And I could check off 90% of the things that were on there. And it was because of just focus, right? I focused on those things. I wanted those things. I found opportunities to achieve those things. So whether you do a vision board that's all beautiful and you put it on your wall, or you have Post-its around your computer, or you have a list that you have, in a notebook, it doesn't really matter. But the important thing is to visualize what you want. And then it's easier for you to be able to go after it. I've already mentioned the attitude of gratitude. I will share with you that at the end of every day, I sit down with my family and we have dinner. And when we sit down and have dinner together, it's kind of cool because I ask them to go around, and we now call it grateful fors, right? I say, what are your grateful fors? And everyone is required to say at least one. Today, we do this so often that I can hardly get them to just say one. I actually kind of have to bring them down for a landing sometimes when they're going on and on and on and everyone's done with dinner. And, but which is an awesome, not a problem. It's an awesome thing to have happen. But sometimes, for example, a loophole was created by one of my youngest children who now says, I'm grateful for you, Mom, and everything else I didn't say. And I'm like, wait. No, you can't do that. You have to go back and say something. So really, really exciting stuff. I am going to keep the chat open. So if you have any questions or anything comes up, of course, you can just interject. And I'll ask you every so often if there's anything, any question or any comments. But you can also at any time just throw stuff in the chat and I'll bring it up as necessary or as it comes up. So attitude of gratitude, as you notice, I wake up and I instantly think of what I'm grateful for, my breath, my body, my ideas. And then when I go to bed at dinner, right before bed at dinner, I'm thinking, with my family, what are we grateful for? So there's constantly an attitude of gratitude. And for all the leaders that I know, it is a common thread for their success is having this sense of gratitude in their life. Then we have the final thing is congruence or congruence. I don't know, you can say it however you'd like, but congruence is something I learned from Tony Robbins 20 years ago. And he said something that really resonated with me. He said, you want to make sure that what you're thinking about, like what I write down in the morning, is consistent with what I'm saying, the words that I use, and that's consistent with what I'm doing. That is congruence, right? Thoughts, words, actions, that they are the same. And it's something that I've really focused on for decades now in my professional career, right? That I was exactly the same person in a blog post, on a podcast, on a stage in front of 1,000 or 4,000 people. And then also exactly the same in a meeting at work, with my kids at dinner, right? I was congruent in every moment. This is not easily done because oftentimes there's a word that NPR actually created a podcast for it called code switching. Because we often, when we're in a certain environment, we change who we are to accommodate the people we're around. And sometimes that means you might say things that you don't mean, or you might do things that don't align with your ideas and your thoughts. And that's okay, but it's really important to be mindful about it. So mindset mastery is really focusing on like, how do you get in the right mindset, in the right frame of mind, so that you can be open to opportunity and willing to take risks and be a bit dangerous, which is what we're going to talk about in the next few. Now, one of the things that I did, you'll notice here, like this is a song, maybe you know it, right? What the world needs now, I'm not going to sing, is, you're welcome, is Love, Sweet Love, right? So I'm going to share with you an idea that I got last summer. 2 summers ago. It was during the pandemic. I woke up, it was a Sunday morning. I woke up and I was like, the world needs love. And the reason I said that is because I was going through my Instagram feed and it was all of these people that were about success, but they weren't like authentic me people. They were like Ferrari driving yacht people with jets and like all of this stuff. Like they were very stuffed people, right? Materialistic. And my passion, what I'm excited about, like, isn't much about the stuff. I actually, to give you a funny, sad story, like, I don't know, maybe, I guess it was 7 years ago, we moved across the country for a job. I think I was moving for Amazon. Amazon was moving us from Seattle to Massachusetts to work for the data science team. And in transit, all of our stuff was burned by accident in a freak trailer fire. Right. So everything we earned, like everything, all the baby pictures, all the cute little ornaments, like I'll cry if I talk too much about it, but like the cute little ornaments with their fingerprints on it, like all that stuff just disintegrated. And it's funny because only about 20% was burned by fire. The rest, though, was destroyed by the fire department that went and like hosed everything down. So, it almost made it, but anyways, but a bit sad. But what I learned from that, and really what my kids learned too, like all their toys, everything that they thought was who they were was gone. And we had to start over. And I think it was a really important lesson for them. And of course, for me, I became very, just agnostic to stuff. Like I don't really care that much about stuff. I don't shop. I don't have bags. I'm not into shoes. Like I just It's not my thing. Now I'm into experiences, right? Like things that are tangible that we can like, like an experience or a memory, right? So that's why we have dinner every night. Cause I know when my kids get older, they're gonna be like, yeah, we had dinner every night. Like it's going to be an experience for them, not what we had. Goodness, I make dinner different for every single person at the table. So who knows what they ate, but the fact that we sat down every single night, like that will stay with them. So the world, what the world needs now is love. At least this was my epiphany. And I wanted to be an influencer, like a social media influencer that wasn't like everyone else. I wanted to be what I ended up calling a lovefluencer. And you can go see the brand today. It's lovefluencers.com. Really successful brand. Ended up selling a bunch of swag like t-shirts, and you can kind of see my shirt says love on it. But I built the brand by doing basically what I'm about to share with you. And the first thing that I had to do when I was considering what I wanted to like, how I wanted to bring this brand to the world, was I had to figure out what I was good at. And this is a big struggle for a lot of us because we don't have a community of people we could just ask. We might have a friend, we might have a spouse or a parent. And the unfortunate thing is many times those people that are closest to us become our dream squashers, right? Become the people that go, yeah, I'm not sure you should, like, that's not for you. AI, you're not smart enough for that. Like, come on. Like, I'm not being mean. I'm just like, let's be real. Like, these are things that people told me, right? I'm like, I can learn anything, but they don't see me that way. I always remember the story of like Jesus, if if you know the Christian faith, like where he never went back home to preach. He never went to his hometown to preach and perform miracles because he knew that they would never be able to see him as his new self. Like they would never be able to see him beyond the carpenter's kid and the kid that would run around and like, who knows, cause trouble or run around and ask too many questions. Like they'd never see him as the rest of the world has come to know him after he turned 30, right? And we all know, like, I could tell you there's certain members of my family who will always see me as 16-year-old Noelle. Like they'll never become a customer of mine. They'll never buy anything I sell because they're like, you're the 16-year-old girl who couldn't, like figure out like homework, who wanted to drop out of high school. Like, so there's something to that. And I say that just to give you a bit of perspective on who you ask for like help, right? I would encourage you. There's a author called Charles Fillmore. He authored dozens and dozens of books. But one of the books he wrote, in it, he said, when you have something about yourself or an idea or a business that you want, he's like, kind of think of it like a pot with a lid on it that has water boiling, like a teapot. And he's like, if you open it up to show people or talk to it, all the steam escapes and it takes longer to boil. But if you keep it closed, like just you and the little pot of boiling water, it'll boil much, much faster, which means that you can get to a point of success much faster than if you go and tell a bunch of people too early in the process. I'm not saying don't share it. Just be reserved about who you choose to let in to this, into the world that you're about to build. So these are some questions that I often ask myself when I'm building a new brand. And like I said, I just did it with Lamplighters, my new brand. But I ask, this is a way for me to figure out what should I talk about in my brand, right? How should I get my word out there? One, you write down all the things that you love, right? Like if somebody was to ask you, what do you love? How would you answer that question? Oh my gosh, I love skiing. I don't. But I love Bikram yoga, hot yoga. I do love that. I love dogs and cats, animals probably in general. I love video. I love social media. I like creating it, not watching it. I love technology and futurism and talking about the future and robots, right? And the idea is that you want to, when you say like, I love this thing, like the energy in your body should change, right? You're like, oh my gosh, yeah. And then you remember like the last time you did it and you get all excited. So what do you love is one thing, like things that you care about. When I was a young kid, I think I was like, I don't know, 12 or 13, I was asked to get on stage and present something to my church. And in that moment, I realized I loved being on stage. Like it was so cool, even though I was terrible at it at that time, because it was the first time I'd ever done it. Like I was like, this is awesome. I want to do this. So I knew that's what I loved. The next thing is, what are you good at? So I'm good at technology. I'm good at solving problems. I can build a sales funnel in like 3 minutes. I can put lots of pieces together technology wise. I'm very good at that, right? So you want to evaluate like, what do you love to do and what are you good at doing? And they likely will not be exactly the same. There'll be a slightly different list. What I encourage you then to do is, of course, to find the cross section, right? What are things you love to do that you're good at, right? Because I love the cello, but I'm not good at it. Right? I don't really love to sing because I'm not good at it, but I might love it. But the cello, I love the cello. I love it. I love playing it, but I'm not good at it. So it's not something I would choose to pursue professionally. But like technology, I love it and I'm good at it. And speaking or talking about technology is like the perfect thing. And that's the evolution you want to get to. One thing you could do, we call it basically you could go to Facebook and you could ask other people a very specific question, something like, "Hey everyone, I was just curious. You've seen these posts, right? Tell me a memory you have of me, or when you think about me, what's the first thing that comes to mind?" Obviously, if you have a bunch of pranksters in your Facebook community, right? Maybe you don't want to ask them. Or maybe you ask a few people in a Facebook Messenger group or a WhatsApp group, right? But find some people that you know, like, and trust, and ask them literally like what they think of when they think of you. Like, do they think trustworthy? Do they think super fast at building stuff? Do they think great speaker, right? Good friend? Like, and it doesn't matter what it is, because all of these are just going to be little bits of how you can really engage with the world. Because if they see it, chances are you can, if you choose to, you can kind of capitalize on it. I already talked to you about the be, do, and have activity, right? So it's very simple. You get a piece of paper and you write be, do, have, 3 lines, a line across, and you make 3 lists. Everything you want to be in the world, like in your lifetime, everything you want to have, and everything you want to do. And you write it all out. And it, of course, can change every single day. Mine changes all the time. And of course, I'll knock stuff out and need to add new stuff. But having this, it's interesting because be, do, and have, sometimes we're afraid to write down things that we want to have. For example, I don't think I ever wrote anything financial in have until like the last 5 years, right? For whatever reason, like I never said I wanted to be a billionaire, but now I want to have $1 billion. Like that'd be awesome, right? And I say it out loud and it's not terrible. But earlier in my life, I never had haves that were financial. They were all kind of more materialistic or experiential, right? I want to have an audience of 10,000 people, or I want to have a best-selling book. So a little bit different, but it's a great activity to keep you focused on things that you want to do in your life so that you actually get a chance to do them. Now, this is what I call, so all of these are leading to you creating what's called a story inventory. It's literally like an Excel spreadsheet or a legal pad with every story that you can tell. So one thing that I have done many times is I will write down all the roles that I've played in my life. Now, it's surprising. First time I do this exercise, I come up with like not nearly as many as I end up with later. But I start on a big whiteboard. So I have all these like whiteboard things over here. I start out with a whiteboard and I say, okay, what roles do I have? And this is every role from a parent, right? I'm a parent, I'm a spouse, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm, I don't know. Hopefully you guys were able to see my screen before because it just told me that you were able to see it. But I go through all of the roles that I am or that I have, right? I'm so a caregiver, right? Then I go to work and I'm like, I'm an evangelist. I'm, a practitioner. I'm certified. I'm like all these things. And then I go to different aspects of my life and figure out what roles I have and write them all down. The reason for that is because you have stories related to each one of these roles, right? I'm a special needs parent. I'm a dog owner and a cat owner, and there's different experiences associated with that. I owned a small dog and a big dog, right? And I can tell stories related to all of these. The next thing you want to write down is all of your success and failure. right? So everything you've been successful at, you're going to want to write down. So I was successful at, my Alexa thing, right? That was pretty successful. I was named the #1 person to have an AI event. That was cool. I was on NBC Nightly News. I was, on PBS. I was, I've been on 150 stages in 3 years. Like I write down all of the cool things. And then the fun part, I go and write all the bad things I've done. Like I got fired from Microsoft. That's a fail, but a great story, I'll tell you. I had a horrible tragedy in my personal life. So I write that down. I have, I'm been married twice and it was a disaster, right? So I wrote that down. Like all of these become stories, if you choose to tell them, that can kind of increase, right, the awareness people have about who you are and what you stand for. So the story inventory is something you should start now. And what I did the first time I did it is I pulled up a spreadsheet, or you could do it again on a notepad, or you could do it in Word or Docs on Google, and just start writing. Start at the very beginning of your life, like as early as you can remember. My earliest memory is like around the age of 6, right? And I was in Sunday school and we sang these songs. They were called joy songs. But all of the words now that I'm older, I realized were all affirmations, right? It was like every little cell of my body is happy, right? Like all of these like cute little songs that I knew by heart, they ended up being like health affirmations, financial affirmations, relationship affirmations. I had no idea. So it was really interesting to like go back and write all that stuff down. So I wrote every memory I could think of. And now as new memories come up, when I'm in an environment, I'll tell you, I was just in New York City this week, delivering a talk at a conference. And I got to New York City and we were on Broadway in the financial district, which is where I used to work 20 years ago. And we roll up, like we're walking. So we walk up and I see this building. And I was like, gosh, that looks familiar. And I realized, and I actually started crying. Like I got very emotional. And this is the first time I'm actually telling any of my friends, but it was the first time, like I was in that building on 9/11 teaching a class. And it was the first time I had been back to that building since 9/11. And I walked out of there across the Brooklyn Bridge. Like it was a horrible day. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've never been back here. And that's a story. Like I could tell that story. I could figure out a way to make that interesting, right? So I added that to my story inventory, but I almost feel like I blocked it out or repressed it. Totally forgot about that location. I forgot about the guy later that day who came to me with tears in his eyes, and he had a ticket to go. I don't know if you remember, but at the top of World Trade Center, there was a restaurant and you could go there for lunch. And he had tickets to go there for lunch the day that they went down. And I remember him telling me like he was all messed up, like, oh my gosh, I was supposed to be there at noon today. And of course they went down like at 9 a.m. that day. And just all these, like a flood of memories came back, and all those become stories that you could potentially tell. And the reason we need them is because storytelling is the art of teaching, right? It is how you will get certain messages across, it will give emotional backing to some of the very logical things that you're going to want to share with your audience. So your story inventory is a practical thing. I'm actually creating a planner where you could just open it up and start writing in it and build your story inventory. The next thing I learned from a guy, I think his name was Matt Dix. He's a professional storyteller. He actually won multiple competitions on storytelling. I've never done a competition. I feel like that would be fun. But he's won he gets paid to tell stories. And he created this concept called homework for life. And this concept is basically every single day, at the end of your day or at the beginning, it doesn't really matter as long as you do it every day. You could go in and write one sentence or maybe two that recaps a memory from the day. And the reason we do this is because, as you probably know, over time, you will start to lose memories, right? They'll fade, they'll go away, kind of like dreams. And so if every single day you're like, today, I'll tell you, for example, one of the ones I wrote down was like, today's the first day I realized my son could read. And it was such a happy memory. And now when I go back, I'm like, that's so cool that I remember the day that happened. Today is the day that my son lost his first tooth, right? Or my daughter learned to walk, or, those are big ones, but it could be anything. Like yesterday, today or that day that, and I do this every single day, and I do it in a little app on my phone. I just write in 2 sentences that describe it. I wrote on Wednesday when I ran into my old building. I was like, I ran into a building, the old building I used to work at, and the last time I'd been there was on 9/11. I wrote it all down so that I could go back at any time and kind of see little stories that end up showing up in my daily life that I'm not really thinking about capturing. So homework for life means you do that every single day for the rest of your life, because you will constantly have stories that you could miss, that you don't realize are important until later. But because you've captured these moments, it's almost like that app, what's it called? 1 second something. Anyway, I think it's like 1 SE, 1 second every day. Oh yeah, that's it. 1 second every day. And you capture a video or a photo every single day, and then it puts it together similar to that, right? But it gives you the ability to actually document a memory from every single day, and that will become your inventory of stories in the future. So let's take a look now. So that's our second. The first one is, of course, getting the right mindset, lots of activities to do there. The second one is to know your strengths, right? Understand who you are, what you do, what you've done well, what you've done poorly, where you've learned your lessons, and start writing them down. That is the most important thing you can do, is just start writing down the stories that you remember. And it may even trigger stories that you thought you've long forgotten. Okay. Next is, okay, we're ready, right? We've got our story inventory. We've got an idea of what we want to say. We've done some work figuring out who we are. I didn't include in here any kind of purpose-driven exploration, though with my coaching clients, I definitely spend some way more time in that space than any other. But you do, hopefully, as you do this kind of be, do, have exercise, you figure out your why, right? What you're trying to do. What is it? Like, are you launching a business? Then that's your why. Do you have children that you want to create a better world for? Maybe that's your why. Or a nonprofit you want to support, or a message or mission that you want to get out into the world. So that's the first thing. I will tell you, so just a few weeks ago, I guess it's been a little longer now, maybe a few months ago, I had an idea. I was reading a book by, his first name's Frank. We're not on a first name basis, but his name's Frank. He wrote a book called How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling. Awesome book. You should read it. It's very short. You can I read it in an hour, maybe two. Very good book. But at the end of the book, he talked about he gave a story about when I think it was when he was a kid. Is that possible? I don't think it was when he was a kid. Maybe it was his dad told him the story. But anyway, he was talking about the 1800s and how in the 1800s, there was a person called a lamplighter. And this lamplighter he was saying it was him. So maybe this is a really old book. But anyway, he was saying that he would look out the window and he was so excited when he saw the lamplighter, because he would watch this person climb up on a ladder and light the lamp. And it was so cool because he would watch him go down. And as the light from the day would, turn to dusk and get dark, he could still see the lights go on as the lamplighter continued. Even though he couldn't see the person lighting the light, he could still see the lights go on. And it really resonated with me because I was like, you know what? It's kind of like what we do every day, right? Our goal, some of us, is to light, right? Empower, ignite in other people, like I want you to be successful. I'm a leader at my company. I want 450 people. I want their success. I want them to be, reaching their highest potential. So in them, I need to light this light, but I also want that light to be seen whether you can see me or not. As a matter of fact, I actually prefer you don't, right? So lamplighter became actually a bit of an acronym. I wrote it all down here, but you can actually go and listen to the podcast if you want to learn more about it. But I got this idea. I was like, lamplighters, this is awesome. I want to build, I'm going to write a book called The Lamplighter Effect. And each one of the letters in Lamplighters is going to be a letter of a leadership principle that I want to embody. So you can imagine, like, love is first, hence the shirt. Ambition, right, for A. M is mindfulness. P is purpose, right? L is leadership. I is imagination, right? You get the idea. And there's 12 of them. So But the way I came up with that idea, of course, was just like reading and looking around. And I ended up reading the story and being like, oh my gosh, I love the idea of a lamplighter. I feel like I'm a lamplighter. It goes in alignment with my Lovefluencers concept. So I was like, this is beautiful. So I just started writing it all down. Now, now I've got an idea. I want to write a book or build a movement called the lamplighter effect. Now what do I do? Right? So this could be for you or your company. I am one and the same. I am Noelle Inc., right? So everything I do is layered into my personal brand. But the first thing you have to do is stake your claim in the world of the internet. And what that means is that you need to go get a domain. So if you go out and look, if you Google Noelle Silver, you will see noellesilver.com, and you will also see noelle.ai. Both are my ways of kind of carving out a little bit of the internet world for myself. If you do not have your own website or your own domain, at least, that's your very first step. Go put the stake in the ground and say, I own this. This is mine. I have a space. There is, of course, a cost to doing that. So none of what I do or say here is intended to be like, this is free and easy and right, get rich quick. None of that will happen. It will require you to actually, of course, pay and invest over time. However, there is a new world. There's a company called Unstoppable Domains, and they allow you to buy your domain on the blockchain, which is cryptocurrency based. It's all Web3, this kind of new technology, but you get to buy it once and you own it. And once you own it, it's on a blockchain. It's got a ledger that identifies your ownership of that, and you can use it however you want. We're still in the early phases of that, but just to give you an idea that you could also buy, I think I've noellerussell.x, noellerussell.nft, right? So there are opportunities to build your brand in the new world of Web3, which is, again, I won't spend too much time there, but you have two options. Either way, go put your stake in the ground and get your domain name. Once you've got your domain name, you're then going to want to decide how you want to go to market, right? How do you want to get the word out about who you are? You have three choices, basically, right? You can use the written word, you can use audio, or you can use video. I would encourage you to pick one. And the reason why I encourage you to do that is because I went and worked for LinkedIn. I'm one of their authors. So they came to me, asked me if I wanted to author a course. They paid me a signing bonus. And now I'm authoring this new course, which is super exciting. I'm a LinkedIn author. Yay. My producer asked me a very important question when we first got started. He said, all right, tell me about something like a topic that you're going to put in your class that you know without thinking too much about, like you know it cold. And I was like, all right, I got it. And then he said, and this is what I would like you all to do, write down some homework, is that he said, take that topic that you can talk about with no problem, you know very well, backwards and forwards, but, hone it to like a 15-minute exercise. And he said, do three things. First, write it down like you're writing an article for the New York Times or Washington Post, right? Write it like a written article that you'd put in a Forbes magazine. Then, again, without any real thought, you're going to first write it as if you're going to publish it in a magazine. Then you're going to record it like a podcast, like any successful podcast. Just record it, audio. Again, no one's listening, so there's no pressure. You're not going to publish it, no pressure. It's just to give you the experience of speaking on a microphone like this and talking and having your voice recorded. So talk about the thing backwards and forwards, just speak it. No video. And then finally, do a video for it. And what he said is do all three of them sequentially, right? Do all three, and then evaluate how you felt doing each one. Evaluate not how well you think you did or the outcome of what you did, because there's editors and magic makers that do all that work. He said, instead, think about how you felt. Where was the least amount of friction for your soul, right? Right. So where's the least amount of friction? So when I go in and I write like with, typing on a keyboard or writing with my pen, how is that friction internally? Like, do I like doing it? Do I procrastinate? Am I happy with how it work, how I work in that medium? And then when I'm talking, how does that work? When I'm on video, how does that work? Right. So pick your medium based on the least amount of friction internally, because writing content, building a brand is a long-term commitment. It is a marathon and not a sprint, as they say, right? So you're going to want to very specifically focus on which one do I like. And here's the magic. So I'm an AI person, artificial intelligence. Today, there are techniques and tools to recreate your content for every other medium. So you don't have to build a blog and audio and video. You can do the one that has the least amount of friction for you, the one you actually maybe enjoy a little bit, and then you can generate content in all the other ways. And I'll show you a little bit about how to do that in the scaling section. All right, so that's pretty cool. So figure out the one that you like the most. I'm going to spend time in all three, but do that exercise, right? Pick a topic that you can talk about for 15 minutes, write it like an article, record it like a podcast, deliver it like a YouTube video, and see which one you felt better doing. And go with that first. Don't do them all at the same time. Pick one medium and stick to it. And I'll show you a tool you can use to replicate it or repurpose it for multiple channels. All right, so we have that. So now let's say, for example, you're in the written word, right? The first thing you need is a place to host your written word. I encourage you to build a blog. Today, they're very easy to build. You can use any templated system to do it. There's like Wix and Squarespace, GoDaddy. Almost all of my new brands are built on GoDaddy because it's super easy. They have templates. I customize them. I use a couple images and it's up. The most important thing is massive action, is to get it up and out there. It doesn't matter how good it is, you will evolve it. It doesn't matter if you've got a logo, you'll create one, but get it up online. Make sure that the world knows that it exists. But more importantly, Google and Microsoft, all of these algorithms that are indexing your content, the sooner you get a placeholder on the web, even if it's just text saying, I'll be back soon, the sooner you get a placeholder for your domain, the sooner these algorithms will start recognizing that you're something to be thought about, right? So it's very important to do this step. The next thing is really to think about what you're going to say. So, and where you're going to publish it. So you'll notice here, so first get your domain name. As I mentioned, you can go Web3 with Unstoppable Domains or a traditional domain like GoDaddy, or what's another one like Namecheap, or what's another one I have? Bluehost, right? There's lots of them. Then you're going to want to build a blog, or let's say you're just not that person. You don't want to build your own website. I think you should, even if it's just a very simple template and you just get it out there. But there are benefits and advantages to using other hosted sites. One of them is LinkedIn. LinkedIn has billion, some odd, I think 2 billion, 3 billion, I don't know, lots and lots of users. And it has an algorithm that shares your content with those users. So it makes sense for you to go in and build your content and put it on a platform that already has people looking for it. So LinkedIn.com is one, writing articles on LinkedIn.com, and Medium.com is another. You can actually become a publisher on LinkedIn. And in other words, build your own newsletter and create your own content and get your own subscribers. Same thing is on Medium. You can become a publisher on Medium. All of this, get this, for free. You don't have to pay to do these things, right? You do have to engage. You have to create engaging content and get enough people to like and follow you to qualify for some of these services, but you don't have to pay extra for them. You just have to build good stuff. So Medium.com, I think I sponsor it, but I don't pay for any services, but I do have my own publication and I get other people to publish on my publication, and I also publish myself. The benefit to that, again, is eyeballs. You get people you don't know that are going to be exposed to content that you write, and it may drive awareness to the things that you're saying. Don't forget to tell your story in a way that is at least a little bit inspiring. And what I mean is, I love the messy middle, right? I love being in that part of my story where I'm like, wow, this is horrible. I hope it turns out okay. I say that a lot in really bad situations. Like, I hope this comes out okay and I get my happy ending. Can't tell you how many times in my life I've said, I hope I get a happy ending here, right? And the reason for that is because I'm not here to tell you how to tell your story. You will decide that. But I do know from personal experience that those stories that I provide, like, here's what happened, here's the bad thing that happened, but here's the great thing that happened as a result, here's the overcomer story, right? Those resonate so much more with an audience that's looking to be inspired or moved or or, part of something bigger than themselves. So it just depends on your audience, but I encourage you not to get stuck just in the messy middle and writing about the bad stuff without some kind of heroic outcome, right? Where you're like, and it all worked out at the end, right? We all love tropes that end well, and the ones that like punch you in the gut, right? The movies that, you think all's going to end well and then the spouse gets killed right before the end of the movie. Like, you're like, that's a horrible movie. Why would I ever want to watch something like that? And the same is true with our personal stories. Like, we want to build stories that inspire, that create hope, because it will draw people to us that will then want to engage with us transactionally, buy our stuff, right? Whether it's services from a company we work for, or whether it's our own products and services in our own companies. So the way we structure it is we build a story. We start with the problem, right? Here's this thing that happened. It was horrible. We then say, here is, how it turned out. Like, don't worry, it got to a good place. And then we also provide, like, here are the 3 things I learned from it, right? Here's the value I got from that experience. It's not only really good for you as a human to go through this process, but it's really good for our audience, because that's how we turn, right, decades into days. We take all of our life experience, bottle it up in some of these stories, and people can get the value and learn from our pain in much less time and with much less pain than if they had gone through it themselves. So we call it the hero's journey. It's not an unfamiliar format. Every romantic comedy typically goes this direction. Certainly most stories have some hero's journey associated with it. It's how we resonate with characters. It's how people will resonate with you. So get used to telling the happy ending. And if you're in the middle, it's okay to say that you're in the middle of stuff. But already be thinking about. That's one thing I always share with my audience is I say, bad things happen. Like the day I got fired from Microsoft, right? I've told that story before where I'm like, gosh, that was a horrible day. It was unexpected. It was unfair and unjust, but still it happened. But in that moment, I instantly was like, all right, I'm going to feel the feels of this for like 90 seconds. I'm going to be mad, sad, cry, whatever I need, 90 seconds. And then I'm going to make a plan, right? So I always say, like, when something bad happens, like, feel the feels of it. If you can get to 90 seconds, awesome. If it takes you 90 days, that's okay too. But like, realize that there's a limit to like being in that feeling, and then make a plan. Like, what are you going to do next? Literally, the day I got fired from Microsoft, I felt upset and angry for like, I don't know, a few minutes. And then I called Apple and asked them for an interview, and I got one. I didn't want to work there at the end of the day, but like, I made a plan and started taking action and instantly distracted myself from the ridiculousness of that situation, right? And that's what it takes sometimes. Like I said, I'm not here to, tell you only worry about really bad traumatic things for 90 seconds. Like, it's up to you how long you stay in that space. Just know that that space is finite, and that level of finiteness is up to you. You get to choose when you're ready to move on and make a plan and start working on your future. I try to make that time as small as possible. Like, being in that ugly place of like, woe is me, and am I good enough? And like, I can't believe this just happened. Like, it's valuable for a minute because it's emotional, but as soon as I can create some space between that event and my future, the better. So that is the written word side, right? So your activities for that is to go in and write an article in a hero's journey format on one of the stories in your story inventory. The best thing to start with, if you don't know, is your backstory. And what that means is like who you are, right? How did you get here? Not I started in a small town in Kansas, and like, not the step by step. Pick one of the stories in your inventory and use it to tell who you are. So if someone's never met you before, it should be the first episode of your podcast or the first article you write, right? If someone's never met you before, how do they know who you are? Today, I've said it so many times that it's my 3-minute intro to every talk I have. Every talk, every podcast, I spend 3 minutes and I tell my backstory. It's also my blog post. It's the first thing I say on my podcast, right? Like, so whenever someone's introducing me for the first time, they know who they're dealing with, right? They know who I am, what I stand for, what my biggest lesson was. And those stories will help you do that. So the next thing, let's say, for example, you go through that 3 medium exercise, you write, you speak, you do video, and you realize talking's pretty easy. And if you don't have to put your face on a camera, you would prefer that, right? It's basically radio for us old timers out there. So how do we, well, what are the opportunities there? The good news is, granted, I'm a little biased because I do come from a conversational AI world where voice is extremely important. But social audio is booming. It's never been a better time to just be cool with talking. The only thing I will remind you, though, is that succinctness of the hero's journey is still just as important as when you're writing, right? So when you tell your story, you start with the conflict. You then talk about the resolution, and then you end with the value, right? You want to make sure that you're talking in these kind of succinct chunks. Otherwise, people will get bored, or worse, they won't know what you're talking about. They won't understand, right, the purpose behind your message. So I want to give you a couple of references to social audio today. One is that you can do social audio. What this means is that you do not see your face, you just talk. There is an app, many of you know it, called Clubhouse. So you can go on Clubhouse, that's social audio. You could just talk. Here's the good news. You can actually talk, and today you can record those talks, and you can publicize those talks, and you can, right? And it's just your spoken word. But it doesn't mean you just get on and start talking. You should actually have a plan, a hero's journey for some of the stories that you have. The next thing, social audio, is Twitter Spaces. So it's Twitter Spaces. Also today, you can go on and just start talking, telling stories about you, your brand, what you represent, what you care about. There's also now LinkedIn audio. So when you do a LinkedIn event, you can make it audio only, which is pretty cool. So I think I just, over the last couple of years, I've spent some time on Wisdom, which is another social audio app on iPhone. I don't know if it's on Android. But it allows me to go in and do talks similar to Clubhouse, but a smaller, not a smaller audience, same sized audience, but a smaller stage. So you get to control who's on your stage. But either way, right? So there's Clubhouse, Wisdom. Oh, Slack just added audio as well. So you could just do audio conversations instead of video. The main reason for this is because a lot of people, me, for example, if I'm listening to a YouTube video, I often will put the phone down, put my headset in, and I'm not even watching the video anyway. So it might be real if you're resonating with an audio only world. Like, there's lots of people out there that will resonate with you and will be drawn to your content because it's audio. I do encourage you to tell your story every day. The last point is actually true for all mediums. You should generate content every single day. Do a captain's log. I don't know if I guess that's kind of sci-fi-ish. But like on Star Trek, the captain every single day would be like, captain's log, 1427 light year, blah, blah, blah. And it actually, in that new movie Lightyear, he uses a captain's log, right? So in these scenarios, we're just capturing the moment. It's kind of like the homework for life. Capturing the moment, where we are, decisions we're making, decisions we're not making, right? But we're doing it for anyone to hear, right? So you could do this again in a blog. You could do it on your own website. You could do it on LinkedIn. You could do it even better in stories and capture your favorite ones into highlights on Instagram. So there's lots of ways to do this, but tell your story every day. Here's the other maybe sad but true thing, is that when you start, you're going to be awful. And maybe you've already started and you're already awful, right? So when you start building your brand or start getting your word out, start speaking every day, start doing video every day, or start writing every day, your early content is not going to be fantastic, especially if you've never done this before. It's just like walking, right? We don't come out of the womb ready to do a 500-yard dash. Like, it takes a moment for us to learn. Similarly, with anything we do, there's a learning curve, right? And it's often like really, really bad. Oh, look, I can do it. And so this is the exact experience that you can expect. The good news is you have a little bit of time to hone your skills of storytelling, right? No one's watching you except maybe your mom or parents, right? Or maybe your spouse or someone who, cares about you and wants to support you. You'll have some early listeners. But over time, it's really important that you realize in the beginning, hardly anyone's going to be watching. And so you can mess up, you can be awful, I will give you a very specific example of this. This woman, Rachel Coleman, awesome woman. When I first met her, my son was like maybe 6 months old. She was launching a new brand called Signing Time. And she had done literally DVDs in her garage teaching moms like me sign language. When they first came out, they were burned DVDs with Sharpie sent to my house. And I paid a lot of money for them, but I didn't care. You know why I didn't care? Because it gave me a tool that I critically needed for my son to be able to communicate and me to communicate to him. And so it didn't matter that her hair wasn't done. She wore no makeup. She was in a garage and they were burned. A DVD was burnt with Sharpie marker written on it. Like none of that mattered. I never even noticed it until later. Then, though, she started doing better. She ended up, fast forward to the end, getting picked up by Disney. She now has like all sorts of stuff. Like she's got picked up by PBS. Like her content, she's now very, very successful. But the important thing is that she kept going when she was doing Sharpies on DVDs, right? Like you can't get to Disney without going through Sharpies. Like that's just unfortunately the way it works. And not everyone has it in them to go through that valley of the shadow of death, right? Where you're like, is anyone listening? Is this even important? Am I even doing this right? We all go through that pace. And then all of a sudden, your followers, your audience goes, oh my gosh, where have you been? Then they tell their friends and they tell their friends, and it looks like a hockey stick. It literally flatlines and then it hockey sticks because all of a sudden, you, of course, are better at your craft of telling your story and getting the word out, but then the world starts sharing that you're good at it. And it's good. I mean, everyone goes through this cycle. The best bloggers in the world start with years of non-existence. So it's really useful. I mean, there of course are anomalies, but it's also similar in the music industry, right? There are anomalies that don't do any long amount of work or pre-work, and they have a one-hit wonder. But it ends up being just that, a one-hit wonder. Same thing happens in blogging or in digital media, right? Where we create something and it goes viral. But if you don't have a brand, if you don't have those life lessons that have put in the work and the foundation, you won't be able to continue, right? Creating content at that level. So it is unfortunate. But I'm not here to tell you brand building is easy. I'm here to tell you it's actually kind of hard. It's super fun though. And you get to watch yourself become a bit of a celebrity in your space. I've done it now twice. It's incredible because you can see that it's a process. And if you follow the process, it works. All right, let's talk about the last one. My favorite, the visual word is what I called it. It's video. There are lots of different channels to put video on. Here's the good news. If you like video, meaning that it doesn't feel horrible to turn on the camera and look at it, I like it. If it doesn't, but you're more worried about what to say and how to say it, you can create content in as little as 15 seconds. And I tell a lot of my coaching students this as well, where I say, they'll be like, I don't even know what to say. And I will look at their industry. Let's say they're yoga teachers, and I'll say, do 1 minute of mindfulness every day. Talk about a mindfulness trick or a mindfulness hack or a mindfulness, whatever, every day. Be like, it's my 1 minute mindfulness, right? Or if they're a financial person, be the 3-minute financial advisor. Be the, like whatever it is. Today, I know it says 15 seconds to 3 minutes. TikTok just increased their amount of time to 10. Instagram, I think, is now increased to 3 minutes, maybe. So they're all getting longer because they realize video content is the most engaging form of content on the planet. Live video, like you're seeing with me now, is even more engaging than that, right? So think about going live. I'm not telling you to. You will do just as well with recorded video. But live video has a certain element to it. It's a sense of vulnerability, obviously. Like I very well may have messed up something that I've said already. I may have transposed words by accident. I might have forgotten a thing I meant to say, right? Like that's live video. That's the way it is. That's exactly what you're experiencing now. But it's a bit more engaging, right? Because I'm literally looking at you all. You have a chance to ask me a question. It'll change the entire direction of our talk. It's an interesting time because a lot of the world, especially coming out of the pandemic, is hungry for interaction, hungry for it doesn't have to be in person. it can be online, but live video gives them a sense like this person is real and they're not completely canned and edited. And that's again, that world that I love, right? Not the beautiful rose-colored Instagram world, but the live world of like, I'm in a hoodie and I have kids that'll run in and scream at me. And, like it's so much more authentic. And that level of authenticity is what will build, can build the biggest brands. So ways to go live, I'll encourage you to do it, but I won't push you. Is of course you can go live on TikTok. You do have to have 1,000 people following you, I think, in order to get that ability. You can go live you can go live on Instagram. You can do that right away. Live on Facebook, live on YouTube, of course. I use Restream.io. I'm not using it right now, but I just used it right before this to do a little teaser for this content. Restream is my favorite because I started with it when it was a wee baby product and it's grown up a little bit now and it gets better all the time. So I use it, but StreamYard's also very good. There's lots of platforms that do this today. But the idea is that I record, like I go live once, I look at one camera, and then it's automatically streamed out to all of these, right? It goes to LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, all of it at the same exact time. So it aggregates all of my audiences to one location, which is pretty cool. And then it also aggregates their comments. And if you choose to, you can let those comments show up right on your screen. So it's pretty cool stuff. But like I said, if you're cool with going live, go live. It's the most engaging form of content. People love it. You will create an audience very quickly. If you don't want to do that, that's okay too. I will tell you I got recently hit 1 million views on TikTok, which is awesome. Yay for me. So I hit 1 million views on TikTok. But the way that I did it is I was posting 3 times a day. And I was looking at the analytics of every single post. I found out over time that the most popular of my posts were 15 seconds or less in most cases, like 8 seconds. The other variable was that it was around a topic, like a AI gone wrong topic, right? So deep fakes or, an AI model that hurt someone, like that was where a lot of energy was in the TikTok audience so that I could go. So I had like 3 videos go viral that were all about like how AI, did something bad. So that became a decision I made to continue to build on that content so that I could continue to see those viral videos show up. That's the only way I found that was because I did hundreds of videos that did not go viral, right? Hundreds of videos, just testing my audience, seeing what they liked, what they didn't like. I had a Alexa tip of the day. I had a mindful moment. I had AI tip of the day. I had all of these things that I would do 3 times a day. And eventually I found out that these I think it was like AI gone wild, ended up being the little part of the world that I got the most engagement. So I started doing a lot of content there. So that's kind of part of the job you'll have on any of these is that you don't just fire away content and forget about it. You fire off that content and then actually see if people like it. You will get rewarded by platforms like Facebook, Google, or I should call them Meta, right? Meta, Google, YouTube, like all of these different platforms, they will choose how to share your content based on how engaging it is. Some of the platforms will check to see how engaging it is with your direct audience, right? Which is why every so often I curate my direct audience to make sure they're people who like me enough to like my stuff, right? Like if you don't like my stuff, then what are you good for? Like my little inner circle, right? So I have a little inner circle of people that help the algorithm go, oh, Noelle posted something and a bunch of people like it. I think I have like 400 people in my little inner circle of followers that I've built over years. But now when I post something, I usually get like 400 people to be like 400 or 500 people, maybe less sometimes. It just depends. But I have a chunk of people that tell the algorithm what Noelle did was really cool. Then it gets pushed to the next level, right? So in algorithm world, it starts with, do your own people like your stuff? If they do, then the algorithm says, okay, let's show it to their friends. Do they like their stuff? And if you continue to get likes on only 2 platforms, does it then go outside of that? So every other platform, you're stuck with you, your friends, and your friends' friends as far as engagement. It's not easy to go viral outside of people that don't already know you. However, on TikTok, the algorithm changes. It's what made TikTok so popular. It allowed the everyday person to go viral, is that it would allow you to, of course, it still uses that algorithm. Like, do the people that follow you like you? Like, did they like what you just did? Oh, they do. Do their friends like what you just did? Oh, they do. But now it will start spreading your content to people who've never heard of you. And there's the magic, right? Is that you get for free, just by building good content that's engaging, you get displayed in front of people who have never seen your content before. That is where the magic is. That magic happens in these three platforms. TikTok, Reels to be competitive on Instagram. Reels has adopted this algorithm as well, and Shorts on YouTube. So when you build a video piece of content, make sure that you create it in a way that you can put it on all three platforms, because it will expand your reach to people who have never heard of you before. And that's how you start to scale. So some tips for success, of course, authenticity. It is, I actually mentioned Gary Brecka earlier. He had done a lot of research. I went and researched the research that he gave us. And there was a really cool study that talked about the power of authenticity, and that authenticity actually creates a vibration in the brain, like a level of vibration between the atoms in your brain, right? That's, oops, sorry, Siri. That is biometric, right? So that you can actually use a biofeedback machine to measure. Interesting thing, I always thought love was the highest vibration. I mean, obviously, I like wear it on my shirt. I love influencers. Love is the first, principle in my lamplighters, methodology. And I've found out really cool through this research that love, though the very high vibration of activity in the brain when you operate it from this place, but it's actually superseded by only one other emotion, and that's authenticity. When you either sense who you're talking to is authentic, or you yourself are being authentic. And it allows you to, again, reach higher levels of success, of interaction, of engagement, because you are vibrating at this much higher frequency. Such interesting work. You can definitely look it up. Or you can ping me directly if you want the actual research that I got from Gary. But I was astonished, because I was like, good, because I love being authentic, and I am myself. And that congruence that I talked to you about at the very beginning, that's all, like, that is all about being authentic, right? What I think, what I say, what I do is all aligned. And so I was really happy to hear that, because I was like, well, that's awesome. I'm super loving, but authenticity comes naturally. And so the more you can make that true for you, you'll see the more easy it will be to attract your dream customers and attract your audience, the audience that you want. Consistency, I'm sure you've heard this before, but consistency is key. I have, I don't know if I have it within arm's reach, but I have a sheet that says how many kinds of content I want to post on a daily basis. So I'll just give you a high level overview. It's not exactly, because I don't have it with me, but this is pretty much what I do. So every day I post 3 stories on Instagram throughout the day. Little tip, if you post stories on Instagram, let's say you do 10 in one day, Instagram will, and stories only last 24 hours. But if you post 10 stories, Instagram will then choreograph them into a reel, a video that I mentioned was the most engaging content. It'll choreograph them into a reel, suggest high trending audio music to put on that reel. And all you have to do is say yes. And then a reel is created, and you then are now building video, even though all you did was capture, a couple of seconds in stories all day long. So that's really cool benefit of building stories and doing these, like capturing your daily life. It's basically, you are reality TV. Right. And so capturing portions of, you at work, you at the gym. I just started a new challenge. I'm doing a kettlebell swing challenge. So I'm doing 100 kettlebell swings a day. And I'm documenting it, right? Like, not for anyone other than people who follow me. But at the end of it, I'll create a video that sequences all 30 days together, and then I'll be able to share it as a reel. So tell your story and be uniquely you. And I say this because when you don't operate in a level of authenticity, or you're not uniquely you, you will end up attracting customers that are not uniquely yours. And the reason I mention that is because if you haven't had this experience, I hope you never do, but many times we will present ourselves out into the world, and we will attract customers who resonate with who that is. And if it's not authentically us, we will eventually look at that customer and be like, why am I working with you? You're so like needy and irritable and complaining all the time. And you don't do anything you're supposed to. You don't. And I'm like, how did I get this person as a customer? And it's many times because of that congruence, because I ended up saying something that attracted them that wasn't congruent with what I do or what I think. It's such a powerful trilogy or trinity, right? Of what you think, what you say, and what you do. And the more you can get that out into the world, your customers, your audience, they will find you. And then usually, at least this has been my experience so far, those who, are the people that, won't like what I do, won't like who I am, right? Won't be successful with my products or services. They're actually repelled by my content. They don't want to hear about life as a mom. They don't want to hear about life, building businesses or working inside companies. Like they're not interested in what I'm sharing. And that's what I want. I want my content to attract my dream customers and repel those I don't want to work with without me having to explicitly be like, I don't want you here, right? I want my content to be like, this is what I believe. You'll hear this in my Lamplighters podcast. I'm like, we believe in leading with love, which instantly says, if you don't lead with love, like you don't need to be here, right? If that doesn't resonate with you, then you won't like it here. Right? The next thing I say is like, we believe in being ambitious with mindfulness, right? We believe in living on purpose. Like all these things are very specific characteristics that I'm looking for in my customers. And the only way they know that I'm looking for it is because I say this story every single day, every day. And some days I focus on love. Some days I focus on ambition. I have 12 leadership principles, but they are my core values as a person and as a company. And the more I can put that out there, the more likely I am to get customers that are like, oh my gosh, I love that about your brand. I want to be part of it. And that is uniquely yours. And those customers will stay with you for life. Speaking of customers, I think we're doing good. Just checking on the time. Speaking of customers, one thing that I would encourage you to be considering, and I mentioned consistency, but who you are today, your brand, your logo, what you say, your backstory, all of that, always be open to evolve. I am very transparent on my podcasts, in my books, in my classes that I teach. I'm always transparent about this is what I think today, based on the knowledge in my head and the experience in my heart. Like this is my perspective today, but I reserve the right to evolve my thinking. I say it to my teams that work for me all the time. I tell them I reserve the right to evolve my thinking. If you bring me a better idea, if I learn a better idea from a book or from, reading a blog or watching a video, I reserve the right to get better, to learn, to not be stuck in my ways. This is the definition of a growth mindset. So make sure that you embrace a growth mindset. Do not get so attached to an idea, even if or maybe especially if the idea is yours. Because sometimes it's hard for us to be like, oh, that was a bad idea. And it's really hard for us to say it out loud. But it's those moments that express true authenticity, right? True vulnerability. And people love it because they realize you're just like them and that they have ideas that eventually got old and that they needed to shed them. And you can be an example for them in doing that. Whatever you're doing, though, don't forget to document your journey. So documenting your journey is really building your story inventory and doing homework for life. Document your journey by doing stories on Instagram. Document your journey by doing a podcast. Create your own podcast. Did I go through all of these things? Hold on, I'm going to go back. Oh, I didn't put it on here. Oh, wait, maybe I did. I did. Okay, so bonus. I just created a podcast. So I'm going to show you a little bit about how I did it. I built this podcast 2 days ago. I did it in an hour. And I will show you exactly how I did it for those of you who want to. I do think it's an interesting, the nice thing about it is that there are millions, I think, of podcasts now. So no one's really watching at first, but you get a chance to publish content. People can go and find you, and you get to practice honing your word. There's something very different about what happens when you're going to hit publish and the world will have access. Even if no one's looking for it, knowing that the world could find it if they wanted to is extremely powerful, right? So I use a tool called Anchor FM. I'm actually going to see if I can toggle out of this. Here we go. So I use a tool, Anchor FM. I don't know if this is going to be the right one, so let's see. It should have me log in. Oh, just kidding. All right, good. So this is the Lamplighters. I went to Anchor. I signed in with my email address. It said, great, you want to create a new podcast. I just started it. It's available on 5 platforms right now. I haven't promoted it really at all today. I think I sent a post out on LinkedIn. So I've got 6 plays, but this is my baseline. This is how I start. Like, I just built this. You'll notice here, Spotify just came out with video podcasts, which means that you could do your podcast just like this with a mic. You could also have guests. You could record the video, and then Anchor will actually split off the audio for the audio only platforms and make video available on the video platforms, which is pretty cool. So you create your episode, and I'm going to just go into the settings to show you what it looks like. Your episode is a name. Mine's the Lamplighter Effect. It has a description, which is 12 principles, right, that allow you to share your light with the world, create a successful business, and be known by your long-term impact. Then there's cover art. So how do you build cover art? I use a tool, which I'm sure many of you know, but in case you don't, called, Canva. Right? So I use a tool called Canva. I'm not into like rocket science. My logos will likely change. The most important thing is to not let it be a blocker. You have to have something, so go build something. It doesn't matter what it is. So I usually type in logos and I look for something that I can use, right? Maybe I type in a keyword like light or something. I don't know. Oh, look, see, there's some cool stuff down here, right? So I go in, I grab an image, I then edit it. You'll notice inside Canva, you can change the colors to be anything that you want, right? So if you are not orange, it doesn't matter. You can also change this image. There are tons of elements that you can use. So I like this one, right? So I'm going to delete my purple one. I've got this one. Notice there's 2 colors. I can change both colors, right? Complete. You can figure it out. Spend a little bit of time here, not a lot. A lot of people get lost in naming their business and building a logo. Neither of them generate customers. Neither of them get you money, build your brand, right? Like, it's just a tiny little checkbox. So do it as quickly and as efficiently as possible. Best case, just hire someone else to do it, right? This is not the end logo. Coca-Cola has changed their logos dozens of times, right? Any brand, Amazon's changed their logo 4 times in 25 years. Microsoft has changed their logo 17 times, something like that. Like, right? I don't know if you remember Microsoft's old logo. I actually kind of liked it, but they used to be all about Windows and now they're not. So just know that this time is not well spent here. You should not be spending hours building a logo or hundreds of dollars building a logo, because it will change as your product and ideas evolve, as you evolve as a person. All of these things will change, but get something, build something that you feel good about. I created the Lamplighters thing. So let me go back to that. So I use Canva to do it. I'll go down. You can see it here, right? This became my logo. I like the little lantern. I grabbed it from one of these elements. I like it, right? So that's the Lamplighter Effect. This is my logo. This is my favicon, which shows up. You'll now know. So I created a landing page for the book called Lamplighter Effect. It does not exist yet. It is in draft format, but I want to encourage you that if writing is something you can do, you can create a book and actually gain interest in your book without you being done with it, I guess is maybe, or without selling it or even publishing it. I'll show you what that looks like. So lamplightereffect.com. Oh, darn, I spelled it wrong. It's a good thing I didn't spell it some other way. Oh my gosh, what is going on? So something's up with my keyboard. There we go. So this is the Lamplighter Effect website. You go to lamplightereffect.com. It brings you here. And you'll see early access, get a book. Like, this is now when I get on stage, I just send people here. And all they get is 12 authentic leadership principles if you want a free draft of my book, which means you're going to become one of my early lamplighters and you want to know like what I'm thinking, how I'm saying it, and you might give me some feedback, enter your name and you can join the VIP list. All right, let me go ahead. This is just a very simple funnel. I'm just going to put in my email address, join the list, and then you'll see it says, thank you. And what's the next step? Subscribe to my podcast. Did you see? I only have one episode in the podcast. So let me go here. Can you hear that? It's pretty cool. All right, I'm already following it, but the subscribe would be right here. Now you'll notice when you listen to my podcast, it actually has, I'm going to go to episodes. Okay. So I have one. I'm going to eventually, so today after this, I'll probably record my first leadership principle, which is love. And then every day I want to record another one, but I just started this. But everything starts somewhere. You'll notice there's art. This art is not something that I created. So if I go to edit, you'll notice way down here, it lets you upload new art and you can grab art that you created, like let's say on Canva, or you can actually, of course, have someone create it for you. But one thing that's really cool about this, notice here it has this red piece and this purple piece. I actually can create an intro and an outro. I'm going to go ahead and build a new episode just so you can see. Super easy to do. Create an episode, right? So first, it'll show me all of the audio that I've recorded in the past. So I created a 47-second introduction. It's got nice music. Oh yeah, the background music is included.
Welcome to the Lamplighter Effect podcast.
I don't know if you can hear it, but we've got that going on, right? And then, so I could drag that over here. Now the introduction is the same for every podcast. And then I can go in and actually record my podcast episode right now and then hit submit and I'm done. It takes, like I said, I launched the podcast. I think it took me an hour. I recorded 10 minutes of content for the podcast itself, 47-second introduction, which I will get to reuse. I added background music, which took a few seconds to select the one I wanted, and I'm off. It does allow you to actually add sponsorship roles. I don't encourage you to even think about that until you've gotten maybe 20 episodes under your belt. But I'm going to go ahead and go to the next one. You can add subscriptions for people to pay to subscribe to be a member to your podcast, or activate listener support, which means that at the end of your thing, you could say, this podcast is provided by listener support. Click the link below and you will be able to pay $5 for the year in order to keep listening or something like that, right? You've heard that before on like PBS. This is sponsored by listeners like you. So really easy. I love this as a technique, especially if you're good with speaking. And even if you're not, you could write a script and read it because no one can see your face. But it does give you the ability to tell your story, build a framework, and share that framework in audio. Whether or not anyone ever finds it, it doesn't matter. It becomes a business card that works while you sleep. If someone Googles, leadership principles, they will happen upon my podcast 2:00 in the morning. They're going to, in that podcast, get a link to go get the book. And when they get the book, they'll provide me their content or their contact information, and I will then market to them all the other things that we do, right? It's an incredible, incredible opportunity. Okay. Let's see. So that is this. The other thing I wanted to show you was LinkedIn. So I'm kind of going in reverse order. So on LinkedIn, there is a really cool, let's see. There's a really cool index if you happen to be building a brand on LinkedIn that shows you how well you're doing from a social selling perspective. It's a metric that you can measure. And I like this because I'm data driven in everything that I do. I like to have a number that I can see go up or go down, or stay the same. So you'll notice here, this is LinkedIn Sales SSI. It allows you to identify your social selling index on LinkedIn only, of course. It says inside your industry, how well do you rank from a social selling perspective? I'm in the top 1%. I feel like that's pretty good. In my network, I'm in the top 3%. Room for improvement. And here's the 4 elements that index is created from. One, I'm really good at, of course, the bottom, building relationships. I get on stages a lot. I talk to a lot of people. I engage with them. I ask them to connect with me. The next one that I'm pretty good at is establishing my brand, which means I tell my story all the time. I'm posting a lot. I post engaging content. Lots of people engage with my content there. The thing I'm not as good at, which I need to be better or maybe hire someone, is finding the right people. I don't spend time actively sending connection requests to people I don't know. I get on a stage and I tell them to contact me. That's how I get most of the people who follow me. I have about 15,000 followers on this platform, but they're the right people. So I could grow this number by simply spending 10, 20, 30 minutes a day, like spending time explicitly connecting with people in my community. It has gone up a bit. And then engaging with insights. So one thing, and I don't spend a lot of time, I'm very kind of selfish in my posts, right? I post things that I'm doing and that I care about. One thing I could do is look at what's trending in the marketplace and write content related to what's trending. And that's what this measurement is. Not bad, but there's definitely some room for improvement. So that's what this is, but it's a pretty cool metric, right? So I'm gonna, right? Isn't it awesome, Don? So I'm gonna go ahead and paste this in so you guys can see it. There you go. And if you are a metric-driven kind of person, or if you're moving to LinkedIn, and if you can't see this, the main reason that you might not be able to see this is because you haven't reached a social selling, like even the baseline. You'll notice most of the people in my industry are 38 out of 100. Most of the people in my network are 47. I'm a 74. So that's what you want to do, right? It doesn't matter really what your number is, as long as it's way more than everybody else. Right? As long as you are like ahead above everybody else in your industry. And this certainly does indicate that. I did find out that I think the like top 1 to 5% of engaged influencers on LinkedIn are in the 70, 74, I think it's 70 to 100 percentile, right? So I'm at the bottom of that range, but I'm just getting started. So I thought I would share that with you. Awesome. Thanks, Teresa. Nice to see you. Okay, awesome. So that is really cool. Let me think what else I want to share with you. This is like the live demo piece. If you have any questions about what we've talked about, I'm going to go to LinkedIn. So if you have any questions, throw them in the chat or feel free to unmute and say hello. We are recording. So if you don't want to be recorded and don't want that to happen, just throw it in the chat and I can repeat your question. But I'm going to go into LinkedIn itself and show you a couple of different features. So one, write an article. So when you write an article, you can post that article as part of your personal profile or any company you have created. If you have a company and you sell B2B, I'd say even B2C, but B2B, you will want to create a company profile and start building that reputation. You can see I have a few. I'm going to say next to my personal profile. You'll then also notice that once you hit, I can't remember the exact number of followers, maybe it's 100. Once you hit 100 followers, you will get the ability to create a newsletter, right? So I have 2 newsletters today. You're only allowed to create one. I was part of the beta, so I created 2, and then they made the rule that you can only have 1. So I lucked out. I have 2 of them. I will be repurposing my Web3 and emerging tech one to be my Lamplighters one soon. So that is the benefit. But let me go and look at one of them. Let's see. I'm going to go to the AI Leadership Journal just to show you the capabilities that you have inside of LinkedIn if you choose to do it. So I wrote all of these articles, right? And inside these articles, you can see I have 924 subscribers. I don't have their email addresses, but I do know who they are, and I can reach out to them directly. There's also a tool. Let me see if I can remember what it's called. Connected. There it is. This is pricing. So this is a company that focuses on LinkedIn lead gen. So I think, let me make sure. Yes. So if you are interested in kind of amping up or not doing what I did and kind of growing it organically, this is probably 7 years in the making, my progress, right? So if you want to grow faster, you can of course pay to play. I did not pay to play. I haven't done really paid ads because I do so much stages and talking on stages. So I don't do that. but something to certainly consider. Okay, so that is one option. These articles, though, are really useful because these are, I'm just going to click on one. They allow you to add, which is my favorite part of them. So it allows you to interject video and audio, right? This is a pretty engaging kind of blog post, but the format's on LinkedIn and LinkedIn shares this with other people. Every week, give or take, unless there's a large news cycle, LinkedIn will grab top performing articles that are in alignment with certain keywords and promote them to all of LinkedIn, millions of people. And so it's happened to me a couple times, but it's something that you can certainly target, kind of like my 1 million views on TikTok. These are just activities. If you're consistent, you will eventually get picked up by these algorithms and it'll help grow your brand. So these are just like little, I guess, hacks, if you will. All right, awesome. Okay, so that's LinkedIn. Let me think. Any other questions? Let's see. All right, we got it here. That looks great. It's been a long session, but I hope you found it useful. Let me go back to, oopsie, the presentation. I can't remember where that was. Hold on. Go away. There we go. There. Oh, the little, oh, let me not put, okay, hold on. I just have to wait for that screen to go away. And then I will go, I have to move it. Hold on, let me move it. There we go. So let me go in, and the last thing I wanted to do, I think I did that. Yes, here we go. All right, so let me go back to the slideshow and just talk you through. I want to give you an example if you want to use what I just shared with you, which is just some tips and tricks on brand building. And of course, you can join, you can follow me on any of the platforms that I'm on, and you'll hear me. I constantly talk about these things. So we could be friends in that way. But when you're deciding to build your brand, right, with your authentic voice and who you are and what you care about, there's a couple of very specific benefits to doing that, right? One is you can increase your income for a bunch of different reasons. One, if somebody, the very first thing today, it's social selling at its finest, right? The very first thing today people are going to do when they, encounter you and your brand. I'm going to actually go back. Oopsie. I'm going to go back here and show you is they're going to Google you, right? So Noelle Silver. And when they Google you, I've actually heard people talk about this. Not specific to me, but to them, where they're like, someone else has my name. What do I do if someone else has my name? When they Google you, when I first got this name, which my son gave to me, actually, we had a very traumatic experience in our family that caused us to rethink our identity. And my son was like, Silver should be your new last name. And I was like, all right, cool. I'm Noelle Silver. I did not research it. I did not look it up. And it turned out my biggest competitor was an anime character, which is not Noelle Silver. It's like Noelle Silva, but either way. So you can see here, but when I first came here, is all Noelle Silva and Noelle, me, I was like way at the end. I had one image. Now I'm like, I'm up to 3, and this is a new one. So it's super exciting. So one of the things you'll see here is that it brings up all of my content, right? So it's if someone's looking for me, like, it's validated, right? Like, advisory committee, speaker hub, Facebook, a bunch of stuff on video. There's quite a few hits on the very first page. This is your goal. So you want to establish a baseline, figure out today, Google yourself, take a picture, right? Figure out, okay, what does this look like today? And then you want to start creating content. Notice the very first one, this is my website, noelle.ai, my website, noellesilver.com. My Twitter handle, Noelle Silver _, right? All Noelle's LinkedIn profile, my Microsoft MVP profile. Like, none of this is content. It's stuff I own. I built those sites. I created them, right? Like, I created my LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn and Twitter are going to be both easy ways for you to build your brand by just creating a profile and creating content, right? So look, today's the day. That's us. That's what we're doing. I got a new toy, a new productivity toy, right? So really easy ways to build your brand is to connect engagingly on platforms that already have large audiences. And I don't mean in a private way, right? Your profile, I'm not telling you to take your private profile and make it public. I actually have a private Instagram. I have a private Twitter account that I only connect, like my inner circle is on. But I do have public versions of them, and I'm very careful about what I curate and present on those channels. But they're public. I want the algorithm to know that I'm posting every day, that I'm doing this work, right? So being Googleable is a huge opportunity, and certainly something that you're going to want to make use of. And the reason why is, again, every time I do something, submit a contract or try to get some business somewhere. Oh gosh, I don't want to share it. Sorry, come back. Oh dear, escape. Oh dear, what did I do? Oh dear. Okay, we'll see what happens. Hopefully it'll come back. I may have to just refresh this page. I confused it. So one of the things, yes, there we go. So I want to slideshow. One of the things I've found is that you can increase your income in a bunch of different ways by just creating a better brand. When you become Googleable, it allows you, right? If somebody's trying to hire you, they're like, oh, you get the top end of the band when it comes to salary negotiations. You get a little bit more justification for signing bonuses and equity, right? Because you're known. I will tell you, in the last job I got, the VP that was hiring, or executive VP that was hiring me, he was like, your reputation precedes you. Like, yeah, it does. And you're going to pay for it. Right? Like, that's the idea. You want your reputation to precede you. So that means you need to go big and hard and fast and publish who you are and what you care about. It also protects you from getting, basically bought in to the wrong organization, the wrong company, the wrong culture, right? Because it's so clearly documented who you are and what you care about. You also get an opportunity to speak for money. I am now of the belief that if you are speaking and sharing your knowledge, you should get paid. Start with any fee you can say out loud without laughing. Whatever that number is, go as high as you can, where you can say it out loud when somebody asks you without like laughing or like, doing something silly and sounding like, you don't believe you should make that much. Maybe it's $50, maybe it's 500, maybe it's 5,000, maybe it's 50,000. It doesn't matter what the number is, as long as you can say confidently, that's my fee. Doesn't matter what it is, but it does have to be a number, because you speaking, I've learned this the hard way, your perspective on any problem is valuable, period. So you should get paid for it, even if it's not that much. Now, if you have, as I did, trouble with asking for what you're worth, I created a nonprofit and I said, I speak for honorariums. Honorariums support my nonprofit. Who doesn't want to support a nonprofit who helps, young girls get into tech? Like, right? Figure out a way where maybe it's not about you paying me. Maybe it's about you supporting something that I do or I own. Of course, it'll help you when you build and start or build your own business. Becoming a known authority in your niche is priceless. I mentioned this at the very beginning. Being the best isn't going to matter if you're not the most well-known. So you have to be the best and the most well-known, and building your brand, telling your story, sharing your struggles and your successes, all in social media is going to increase your social selling index, which will let you be better. You'll also be able to command respect and top dollar for your expertise, which means that, like me, I get emails every single day asking me to, sit with someone for an hour and advise them on something, most likely technical topics, which I'm happy to do. But now they're saying, it's $250 for the hour. There was a time in my career where I would have been like, $250 for an hour. That's awesome. I'm no longer in that space. So I'm like, great, thanks. That's not really a fee I can handle. And then I give them my fee and they're like, well, that's not really what we're looking to pay. And that's fine, because I don't want to do it, right? I don't want to spend my time doing that. But in the early stages of your brand building, those opportunities could be very key. You can also get featured in books and in podcasts. This is the other people's stages that I mentioned earlier. You'll want to make sure that on everything that you do at the end, you say something to the effect of, and I'm available to share with your audience, or I'm available to speak or present at any conference or any company event. I'm available as a speaker. I'm available as an author, like whatever it is that you feel comfortable saying you can do, but create an awareness in your audience that you do this for a living, that you, whatever your thing is, you say, and I don't mean do it like you practically build funnels or sell real estate, that you talk about your journey in that space, you talk about it as part of your business and that they can hire you to inspire their own people, right? If you're in real estate, you can actually get paid by real estate associations all around the country to go and talk to their real estate agents. It's really cool. And again, it's just another layer of what your company can do. It's another way to increase your income. Books are always looking for people to do things like forewords or prologues, or also being willing to edit for credit on the book cover. All of these things I get requests for. It ends up coming down to time, of course, for me. But in the beginning, all of them become Googleable events. I also advocate searching for podcasts you listen to, right? Podcasts that you care about, not being like super selfish and being like, I'm going to look for podcasts that have my customers. Like, find people who resonate with you. Who do you resonate with? And then get on those podcasts, because chances are those people will resonate back, right, with you. And they will become your customer. But try not to be super focused on where do I go to find my customer, and be more focused on where do I go to find people like me. Because I personally, and I know many of the world's, maybe younger generations are looking not just for transactional relationships with sellers anymore. Like, I'm not just going to the store and being like, oh, it doesn't matter, I just want to pick this up, right? I'm going to the store that I like. I'm going to the seller that I like. We always say, like, you want to go and work with someone that you know you like and you trust. It's less about the thing. I could probably buy that thing from a bunch of people, but I want to buy it from someone I care about. I want to buy it from someone who has kids like me. Or I want to buy it from someone who, was a war veteran, or I want to buy it from someone who teaches, or someone who is a pastor in a church, or like, they want to know that one little piece about you that it's the same for them. And they're like, I want to be friends with this person. I want to be a customer of this person. I heard recently on a video, I think they said something like, it'll take less time to make your clients your friends than it will to make your friends your clients. And I thought it was meant to be funny, and it was funny. But it goes back to that idea that I actually do strive to be friends with all of my customers. And I do struggle to get people who saw me at 16 or 25 in different stages of my life that I would call friends from those stages. It's harder for them to like become my customer and like think in the way that I think now, because I've evolved the way I think, and maybe they haven't. So it's really interesting. I do like the idea, though, that I first go after people, I go after creating a community and establishing friendships. And then from those friendships, letting them know, like, this is what I do. And if I can help you, I will. And from that, I've never gone hungry. We'll just say that. All right. So the last thing I wanted to do is share with you how and this is literally the last thing. It's going to take about 5 minutes for me to run through, and then we'll close it up. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'm going to go in here and make sure I can see it in the chat. I will stay a little longer if you have questions. Otherwise, I'm just going to wrap it up in about 5 minutes. But, the first thing. So the first thing you do at the end of a presentation like this, and again, this is not a real offer, as I mentioned at the beginning, I want to demonstrate to you what a good offer looks like. I have created multiple offers like this that have been very successful, but I want to share with you, when you're delivering your content, whether it's in audio, video, or in text, blog, you have an opportunity at the end to establish a call to action, otherwise known as a CTA, right? And this call to action should drive them to become more engaged with you. The most important, valuable asset you can get from them is their email, not their first dollar, their email. So you're going to want to create some way to get their email. However, you may also want to create a way to get their email and maybe sell them something, right? Like, I've just showed you so many tools. Many times people will go, I've done this workshop dozens of times, and a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, that was so much stuff. Like, where do I even start? I'm like, don't worry about it. And I've delivered, I basically have a coaching program where I do it with them or I do it for them. But this is how I end webinars similar to this, where I start with this transition statement that allows me to feel good about moving forward. right? About saying, hey, I'm going to offer you something that costs money. So the first thing I do, and I'm actually, oh, cool. Thanks, Fatima. Yes, exactly. The first thing that I do is I say, hey, would you mind, we've come to the end. I don't know. Hopefully you've found, what we've done valuable. Would you mind if I asked you a question? And I literally say, would you mind if I ask you a question? Put yes, no, however you feel in the chat box. You don't have to. I'm just giving you an example, right? Would you mind? And almost always people are like, yes, of course. You just gave us value. Of course, you're going to offer us something. It's fine, right? And so they say yes. And I say, okay, good. I'm going to share with you. In the past hour, right, we've gone through a bunch of stuff. Right? Would you agree that it's been time well spent? I hope so. You could tell me yes if you actually think it was time well spent so far. And then, obviously we can't cover everything in an hour. You need to build your brand. I did my best to be succinct, right? And it was actually more like 2 hours. I did though. Thank you so much. I did want to create a special offer for you. So again, this is me setting up, telling them that, hey, I've got a thing you can pay for. So I just want to remind you, you might be so excited that you want to sign up for something. There's nothing to sign up for. It's just an example. And you can model exactly this. If you want to watch the replay, you can build exactly these slides, and they work because they're truly authentic. So I'm going to show you a special offer so you can get everything you need to build your brand that I talked about. And if you act fast, I'm going to give you, of course, a super special deal because you're all my friends. So I always share with my audience that I had two choices when building a program that would be paid. I could go super cheap, right? And try to sell as many as I could. But unfortunately, if I do that, that means I have to not really spend a lot of time on it, right? It ends up being, it's kind of like going in and buying a wallet. Like you can get a super cheap wallet, but then it falls apart in a month, or you can get a super expensive one and you get to have it for a few years, right? That's your choice, right? Like I have to pay for it, but it's higher value, or I make it really cheap. More people will buy it, but it won't have as much good stuff in it. So of course I decided to go the second option, right? I want to build something that's higher value that will actually implement, like I want you to have a better brand at the result. The nice thing about this is that we have a metric for success, especially on LinkedIn. We also have metrics. There's analytics dashboards on Instagram, on Facebook, well, now called Meta Business Suite, right? So you can actually establish a baseline and prove that you've improved, right? Prove that you've got a bigger audience that's engaged and buying from you. Couldn't be a more exciting time. So I created a personal brand accelerator. That's the name of the product. And here's what it includes. It has a learning portal with all the classes that I do. It includes everything that you just saw. So this class is in there, but you'll also see all the breakdown classes, how to build a podcast. Remember, I just went through it in like 5 seconds. It also has how to create a LinkedIn newsletter, how to go viral on TikTok, how to get 1 million views on TikTok, right? Like all of the little 1-hour videos that I've created over the last 2 years are all inside this learning portal. So you get that. You then will get virtual workshops just like this one. You'll get added to the list where you get to just be with the other lamplighters, and we go through virtual workshops that are specific to building a brand, whether it's how to get on public media, which I've done multiple times, how to create a press kit, how to get on a stage, how to, knock it out of the park with a podcast. All these are live though, virtual workshops live, so you can ask questions and work alongside me. I also do Ask Noelle Anything sessions called ANAs. I know, cute, right? Where I invite just those who are in this program to come and ask me questions. I always say, you'll notice here, it doesn't say how long it is. I say an hour, some go 3 hours long. You can come and go as you please, but there are a chance. I'll tell you the number one thing that happens with customers, number one thing is that they get to a technical thing and then they get stuck and then they stop. Like someone couldn't figure out how to do captions on Instagram, so they didn't do it. They never did it, right? It's the one thing, what's going to get you stuck? So I started doing these ANAs so that if you were stuck, you could just unblock yourself and keep going, right? And it works, right? Because sometimes it's just something that you think is a game stopper. And then I can be like, oh no, it's just that button over there. And you're like, why would I click that button? I don't know, but that's what you have to do, right? Those are the little things that get us hung up and keep us from growing our brand massively in a short period of time. So they're pretty valuable. You also get a 30-minute session with me because sometimes people don't even know, like strategically, what they're going to build, how they're going to build it, what the end result could look like. So we have a framework that we use that allows you to basically build out a business strategy. It keeps you from investing in a bunch of things in order to get a very simple result. My job is to make sure you have a succinct thing to offer, which I'm kind of showing you an example of right now. You have a succinct offer. That offer is irresistible for the price, and that you know how to get it in front of as many people as possible with your brand, right? And that 30-minute strategy session, that's what does it. And people who are willing to do the work succeed every time. The only blocker to achieving your desired result is the effort that it takes. It's the only thing, right? Is people are like, wait, I don't really want to post every day. I don't want to do 3 stories, or I don't want to, I don't want to get on audio. So it usually is much more of a choice not to succeed than anything else. So the total value of this, so this is what's called a stack side. I'm being completely vulnerable, or not vulnerable, but transparent with you here. You'll see like 4 things of incredible value all put together. And I list them out one by one, explaining why they're valuable, right? This is the stack of what you get when you invest in this program. You should have something similar, whatever your program is, and then 4 distinct pieces of value that they get in that program. Include your Facebook group, exclusive private Facebook group, right? Include any virtual sessions that you're going to do, include training, include classes that are already available, any of that. I then talk about who this is perfect for. It's great for entrepreneurs. It's great for intrapreneurs. So if you're inside a company, this is great for you too. It's really good for those who are speakers, authors, and coaches to get the word out and create a place in the internet for you and for people to find you. So again, and then here's the kicker. We do it again, right? We go through all, like, this is what you're going to get. If you are an entrepreneur or a speaker or an author or a coach or an intrapreneur, you will find value in a learning portal and virtual workshops in my Ask Noelle Anything sessions. You'll also get that 30-minute strategy session, right? It sounds repetitive because, of course, I'm repeating it to you, but it's really helpful when people are trying to make a decision about what they want to do, to actually hear this and a slightly different description of each piece when you go through it a second time. So again, the total value, 8,900, blah, blah, blah. I just did the math. Like, it's not rocket science, but you, when you create your offer, are going to want to assign a value. And if you need help building a value to whatever you're creating, I can help you with that. But assign a value to each one of the things that are part of your offer, and then give them a number. Then, but wait, there's more, right? Give them bonuses. So I do a virtual workshop to help people speak better on stage. It's one of the favorite things I like to do. It is a $2,000 workshop that I actually do sell. But for people in this session, not really, but in whatever session I'm pitching this with, they will get it for free. They get a free seat in a $2,000 class, which is pretty cool. The second bonus is I do a brand building makeover where I go over 5 different social media platforms and do a profile makeover. I don't actually change anything. I just basically redline and circle stuff that they can improve in order to really kick up the algorithm's awareness of their profiles, right? Usually I do this for $1,000. It's my lead magnet into my social media marketing program. But for those who are, attending this webinar, which this isn't a webinar, but you know what I'm saying? For those who come, you get it for free. So here's what you're going to get. Oh my gosh, right? And you go through it again. These are called stack slides because you're stacking the value, showing them how much stuff they're going to get if they sign up with your product. It's just an example for you. So Inclusion Inspires portal, the virtual workshops, which we do 1 a month. Sometimes we do 2 a month. Ask Noelle Anything sessions where you get unblocked from any technical problem you might have, or any social media problem you might have. A 1-hour strategy session, I think that was supposed to be 30 minutes. Power Public Speaking workshop, which is a $2,000 workshop we hold 3 times a year. You get a seat in it for free, and you get a personal branding makeover, which usually sells for $1,000, but we are going to include it. Now, if all I did was, now here's another slide. This is an aspect of your offer. You want to tell your customers, right? Your potential customers, here's what this is going to do for you at the end. You're basically what's called future pacing. So you say, if all I did was increase your revenue, right? If you increased your revenue this year, would this be worth it? If I 10x your media presence, like if you were at 100 followers and I got you 10,000, like what would that do for you? 10x your leads coming into your business. Would this amount be worth it? Right? make you Googleable. Like that's pretty cool. Right? Would it be worth it? And then you say, well, you of course you could see like it's an $12,000 deal. At $8,000, it's a pretty good deal. Typically, all this stuff put together, I sell for $6,000 in a yearly coaching program. But because you all are special to me, and of course, only say the stuff that you actually mean. I actually do mean this when I say it to my customers. Because you're special, I actually put all of this together, and you can either sign up for $997 one time today. You get it for the full year, right? All the stuff I talked about, or you can sign up for a monthly payment or whatever. I don't know exactly how I say that typically, but you get the idea, right? Like here's the point of this offer deck that I just showed you, which I'll send to you. Everyone who came to this session and all the replays, you'll get this deck so you can see how this is laid out. But you give the value, the stack slide, the value, then you give some context, the value again, you give some bonuses, the value again, what someone's going to gain from doing it, and then you give them a really good price. $997. I mean, how many times have we all spent $1,000 on something, right? So you want to give them a really good price for the value that you're offering. We usually try to say, you want it to be about a 10%, ask or you do 10 times as much in value as you do in the price. But I've played around with that, and I've found that this ratio, right, 12,000, and I give it to them for $997. This has been very successful. So you can go out. I don't know if this is an active link anymore, so you could go out and check. I don't think it is. But inclusioninspires.com. I give them the link. I tell them to sign up, and that's it. So I end every call with a call to action. If I have a long session like this one, I end the call with that, like I think I took 10 minutes, right? 15 minutes to go through that, but it's because I was ad-libbing as I went. So I hope you don't mind the extra information. Awesome. So hopefully you found that helpful. Thank you all so much for your feedback and being here live. For those of you catching this on the replay, please know that you could just email me any questions you have about the content. It's been my pleasure, super fun. And I hope you've learned a couple things, a couple cool new tricks. And I know we're a little bit over, but I really appreciate you guys coming.